therefore, it has been a good day. Yes, the Lord has been good to us. Since I'm the Lord has been good, right? Okay. So you could our court Sisia. I'm no kaze. And then yesterday on TV we uploaded a video about Yunny Kulendi, Ato Forson filing a new petition against him for the removal of Yunny Kulendi. Then about a ambulance saga a bay giddy the year 2024 mark first BD, and then number of ambulance and a bagana. I was a bagana no. Nebisha for yes 200 pay, and then out of the 200 they were saying say it's just a body equipment to be a car body nipe and on the bagana, no equipment, no nothing. And this is here no Yunny Kulendi ebisha for Ato Forson financial minister filing for the removal of him no. I hope you be because the ebesha no one standing against trial, no only two others, and then Richard Japa personal no dey not with them waiting to my ye pa or no. And then we have voices here on actually I didn't a financial minister a filing for the removal of Yunny Kulendi. Nina NSL or see judge where you man is with your bets now what that came na car will boo for will bill. But Sisiano, you are trying to invade our privacy. The end you can say Yunny Kulendi didn't know Jim Kana, no didn't know Jim. Just a baby and you can say what is that? And yes, I do Jumano. Oh, you're a judge, be a judge. Oh, you're a lawyer, be a lawyer. So you are a judge. All you need to do is be seated and give judgments. Nothing else. Stop invading our privacy. And then summer who do I found and found a whole lot of information and of course so media so and to make person myself come on you go to me
trial, the ambulance trial last year, in which Dr. Ato Forson was standing trial with two others. We are now understanding that he also put before the presidency another petition, this time around seeking the removal of His Lordship Justice Yunny Kulendi in respect of the same matter. We are only able to tell because what we gather is that from what was contained in the statement or the petition to the CID, it's basically on the same issues that have now been put in a petition again to the presidency. Mind you, this will come directly under Article 146, and as the law is, when it gets to that stage, matters are very confidential, supposed to be in camera, right from the petition to when the committee is done with its work, that if it ever progresses to that level. But the only reason we are able to understand what went into that petition is because we have already dealt with a certain leg of this matter, which is before the CID. And the understanding we get is that this petition, which we understand has been submitted to the presidency, is also predicates on the same or substantially on the same set of facts, Alfred. So that's what we are learning.
I see, but then again, if this is to be considered, and we're very mindful of the boundaries of our conversation on this as well, because yes, as you indicated, it's early days yet. What's the process going to be?
Well, so that's also opened up another conversation, which has been a very controversial one, and that has to do with the removal of the Chief Justice. Now, there's an argument whether if the Chief Justice is removed as a whether the Chief Justice removed as a Chief Justice also loses the position of a Justice of the Supreme Court. Those who think that should not be the case argue that the removal process for a Chief Justice is different from the removal process of a Justice of the Supreme Court. In this case, if it ever progresses, we'll be looking at the removal process for a Justice of the Supreme Court. And that takes us, again, to Article 146. Except this time around, we are looking at it from the point where this would trigger a process that will have to do with the removal of a Justice of the Supreme Court and not necessarily a Chief Justice.
Chief Justice. So, yes. So then this particular provision in this article strictly applies, so that then you wouldn't have to import any other ruling in the case of Chum and others. This strictly applies.
Yes.
Because it's not a Chief Justice.
Exactly.
It's a Superior Court judge.
Yes.
Okay, let's get
So that's why we needed to emphasize the point that the removal process for the two individuals is separate. So when you look at it, 1461 says that the Justice of the Superior Court, or in this case, let's just stick to what it is, because we know what it is.
Absolutely.
This is Justice of the Superior Court.
Perfect.
We are not dealing with chairman of regional tribunals. Shall not be removed from office except for stated misbehavior and incompetence or on ground of inability to perform the functions of his office arising from infirmity of body and mind, that the Justice of the Superior Court of Adjudicator may only be removed in accordance with the prescribed, with the procedure specified in this article. Now, this is where it begins. This is the procedural aspect of it.
That's right.
That where the president receives a petition for the removal of a justice of a superior court other than the chief justice, and for the removal of, he shall refer the petition to the chief justice.
Right.
When the president receives, he shall refer it to the chief justice, who shall determine whether there's a prima facie case.
So let's stay with that a bit. So in this particular the clause
Yes.
in this article, from what we saw in the case of the removed chief
The
justice,
chief justice, yes.
a 5-member committee was set up. But this time around,
But let's see, we still haven't got there yet.
let's go.
Yes, because remember, a prima facie was determined before the committee was set
Precisely.
up. So we are still at a point where it says that when the president, upon receipt of that petition,
So which has been done now.
that's what we are learning.
Right.
But of course, receipts will also be acknowledged from the presidency.
Absolutely.
So we are hoping that if indeed it's been submitted as it's been reported, then the presidency would issue a statement to that effect, if they are minded to communicate the status of how things are
It's important
shaping
to
out.
say they are not obliged to let us know.
If it progresses, they would have to.
Yes. But at this
But we have
point,
seen that in the case of the removed Chief Justice,
absolutely.
where we were informed that some petitions had been received and what the process was, and that was the beginning of the legal hurdles for that. But as we speak now, what we gather is that it has been. Except we have not heard from the presidency exactly what the status of it is.
Right.
But of course, for purposes of education, if it ever progresses, this is the procedure we are looking at.
Absolutely.
From the
It's
president to the Chief Justice, now we have an acting Chief Justice.
Yes.
So, and then there will also be a determination of a prima facie. This time around, this prima facie is determined by the Chief Justice. Mind you, in the other procedure that I've seen in respect of the Chief Justice, it was done together with the Council of State, the President of the Council of State. In this case, it's the Chief Justice who does that. Now, after that where the Chief Justice decides that there's a prima facie case, he shall set up a committee consisting. You see that this provision is very clear as to who does what. That he, the Chief Justice, shall set up a committee consisting of 3 justices of the Superior Courts. There again, you see the distinction. In the case of the Chief Justice, Chief Justice,
yes,
there were 2 Superior Court justices. In this case, there are 3 of the Superior Court justices. They are appointed by the council, the Judicial Council, and 2 other persons who are not members of the Council of State, nor members of Parliament, nor lawyers, and who shall be appointed by the Chief Justice on the advice of the Council of State.
right.
So clearly, there's another distinction here. In the case of the Chief Justice, you have 2 justices of the Superior Court. In fact, in that particular one, is 2 justices of the Supreme Court. This talks about 3 justices of the Superior Courts. So it could include justices from the High Court, Court of Appeal, and the Superior Court itself. So those, now that takes us back to those who argued that the processes were different. What they were essentially arguing is that if Justice Gertrude Tukono were to be removed as a justice of the Supreme Court, she ought to have gone through this process, and not one that had 2 justices of the Supreme Court, and basically, so that's the controversy which is ongoing, for which the Attorney General is seeking an interpretation.
Absolutely.
That's a matter which is still pending. But just like I said, for purposes of education. Now, upon the composition of this particular committee, the committee appointed under Clause 4 of the article shall investigate the complaint and shall make its recommendations to the Chief Justice, who shall forward it to the President. There again, you see a distinction that when the committee that was looking into the matter of the Chief Justice were done, they forwarded their recommendations straight to the President. They went and met the President, handed over that envelope. In this case, they are saying that the Chief Justice who will make the recommendations. No. Let's stay here. Yes. Investigate the complaint and shall make its recommendations to the Chief Justice. So the committee goes to the Chief Justice, who then forwards it to the President. Then it continues. So where the petition is for the removal of the... No, this is for the Chief Justice.
Application.
Yes. So the committee appointed under Clause 6. This is also in respect of the Chief Justice. But essentially, what it also ends in is the fact that whatever recommendations are contained in that, the findings of the committee will be those that the President will be bound by. So the President shall, in each case here refers to, be it in respect of the Justice of the Superior Court or the Chief Justice, act in accordance with the recommendations of the committee. So this is how it generally looks like, should this ever progress to the next stage. But like we said, this is what we are gathering based on the complaint that was made to the CID. We do know what the complaint generally is, and now we are learning that that complaint again has been put in the petition, which has been sent to the presidency, seeking the removal of His Lordship, Justice Yunny Kulendi. And
this person we're talking about is Daniel Mafo Foriata.
Yes,
and Daniel from Chebi. That's
Daniel
the man.
Mafo, yes, Foriata.
We have his picture. That's the man in black next to Richard Jakpa.
Precisely.
Right. I see. And it's early days yet on this. It's one that we're looking at and following quite closely, as we did indicate. If the presidency is minded, as we saw in the case of the process as was started, where the former Chief Justice, Gertrude Arabai Sabatokono, Felix Kwachofosu, issued a press statement telling us about the receipt of the petitions. This time around, we haven't heard or seen any press statement whatsoever acknowledging receipt of this petition that is said to have been sent by this Daniel Mafo Oforiata, but it's one that we're picking up